All right, welcome everyone for coming on board. We're in ideas for reducing expenses. So Gina, thanks for joining us. Diane and Quida, much appreciated. Let's give it a couple more seconds, see if a couple other people join. Numerous other ones signed up. And we'll be ready to go in 1 second. All right, let's just go ahead and get started. I have a feeling some other people will join us soon. But you guys are here on time, so let's get going. So first, my name is Philip, and this class is, this session is Ideas for Reducing Expenses. So thanks so much for joining. Franklin, also from Get Set Up, is in the background. He'll be helping me with technical issues and monitoring the chat box, etc. And also this class is on Facebook Live, so they will not be able to talk. For those of you that are on Facebook Live, you cannot interact with us, but you can watch the entire class without being able to ask questions. So just real briefly, it's a little bit about myself. Again, my name's Philip. I live in Chicago. I spent a long time in the corporate world and in various management aspects. It did not include anything to do with financial. However, it's something I just like and have spent a lot of time on. So the idea for reducing expenses is just something that I enjoy. I also give a couple of classes about how to budget, Get Set Up, which is a very similar topic to this. And I do a couple other financial classes and also do a couple of architectural classes. So if you want to join in any of those, that would be great. Ideally, we learn from each other. So if you have the ability to turn your camera on, that would be great. Understand some days we're not camera friendly, and that is fine. This class will be recorded primarily for training purposes for me. However, if you attend the class, if you sign up for the class to Get Set Up and attend it, you can get a recording of the session, and you would request that at help@getsetup.io, and I'll give this address to you again at the end, and I'm sure Franklin will put it in the chat box here shortly. For those of you joining live stream, like I said a second ago, you won't be interactive in regards to asking us questions directly, but if you enjoy the class and want to participate in some other classes, you can sign up through the Get Set Up portal, and you'll be able to register for the classes and then be interactive in regards to it. And then finally, normally we don't talk about too many products in this class, but just like all other classes with Get Set Up, if a product is mentioned, we do not pay that product to that company for the product, nor do they pay us to promote any specific product. It's just something that comes up in the natural course of the conversation. So what I'd like to do is just go an outline of the course real quick, and then I'll turn it over to any of you that have come into the Get Set Up portal. Just maybe introduce yourself real quickly and then talk about any specific areas you want to make sure that we cover in today's session. So I'm breaking up this class into 3 sections. The first one I label Rethinking Ingrained Habits. It's just things we've always done in the past. Do we need to do them in the future? So we'll explore that some. Then we're going to explore some shopping alternatives, some different ways to look at shopping and how we approach it. And then the third area we're going to talk about, it's a sort of a catch-all category. I call it looking at home expenses, because a lot of the things we talk about in that area are about our expenses at home, but there are some other topics in there. So with that, if any of you want to say a few words about yourself, where you're from, what you want to make sure we get out of this class, that would be great. So I'll turn it over to Diane or Gina or Okida, if you want to say a few words.
Hi, it's Wida.
Wida, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, that's okay. A lot of people make that mistake, Wida. But yeah, I saw the class. I'm Wida. Hi, everybody. I'm from Rockland County in New York, and I was really interested just to look and see how I can cut some of my expenses, and looking at home expenses, that really interests me, how I can cut back. So I'm just here trying to see what I can learn and
Rita,
what I can do.
thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Hi. I'm sorry, I'm in the shadow. I was trying to readjust the light, but the light behind me is blocking it. My name is Diane, and I'm from Michigan. And I saw this class, and same way as Guida, I was interested in how to cut some expenses at home and how to um, just some alternative for shopping. Really, that's one of the things there, and how to maybe use what I have to maybe sell or whatever, if possible. Some of the things that I have that I don't need.
Great. Thanks. We don't typically talk about selling things that we already have, but we can try to merge that in a little bit as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina. I'm from New York, but I sleep in Connecticut. My friends would say I'm very frugal, so I'm looking for more suggestions so I can be even more frugal.
Okay, we must have some of the same friends. Yes, none of my friends say the same thing about me. So we'll see what we can do about that. But so thanks so much, all of you, for saying a few words about yourself. I appreciate that. Helps get us going. So let's go ahead and talk about some ingrained habits. So the first one I want to talk about is at renewal. So we've become more and more a world where we buy products by the month, we pay for them by the month, and they typically renew once a year. And that renewal process can be very formal or very informal. It usually, however, does involve one thing, and almost all of them, and is that the renewal, the price goes up some. So the first thing we have to do is recognize that the price has indeed increased, if it has, by looking at our credit card statements, typically where they get it, or through automatic checking deposit or withdrawal, I should say. So just want to look at it. But basically, there's lots of things about the renewal process for us to think about. So we'll cover some of the main ones. The first one is, if indeed the price goes up, there's probably a good chance that you can get that price back to where it was before. So I've had 3 personal experiences within the last 4 or 5 months in 2021, where 2 things of my own and one of a close friend of mine who I help sometimes have had prices go up, and been able to talk them back into getting it where we were. So the first one, good example, is the Sirius satellite radio. I have a satellite radio. I don't use my car nearly as much as I used to, so I have a very basic service on there. And lo and behold, I not paying much for it, Gina. Being frugal, I'm not paying much for the service, but it went up by 150% when you look at the percentages. So it jumped way up at renewal time without any warning. And typically, Sirius, I have to say, in past years has told me that the account was going to renew, but this time they didn't, or I didn't receive the notice. So I just called them up, and it took all of 5 to 7 minutes of my time, which I didn't think was very much, to reduce it back to the same amount that I had the prior month. So again, it wasn't that big of a dollar amount to begin with, but still it's 150%. And the biggest thing about checking something out at renewal, if you save, let's say, $10 a month, right, that's $120 for the year. So you got to look at it as you're not saving $10, you're really saving $120. Or if you can reduce the price by $20, we're talking $240 a year. You follow the math. So, and some of us are a little hesitant to call up to make this discussion, because 4, 5, 6 years ago, these calls were some of them could be pretty brutal. The company would send you from one person to another, yet to another, and you would bounce around, and the whole call may take 20 or 30 minutes if you were successful. That has gone away for, I would say, almost all companies. There's still a couple that are, but the big difference now over the last few years, we have social media where we can really talk about the customer service. We can tell our friends that, hey, I had some trouble with such and such. So really, almost all these companies are very friendly, and you may not get them all reduced, but they're at least going to be polite, and it's going to be a fairly easy conversation and fairly short. So I've done it 3 times. Like I said, this year successfully. One with New York Times, one with Sirius Satellite, and one with AT&T for a friend who had helped move, and then conveniently when he moved, they raised the price of his internet service through AT&T. We were able to get it back to the original price. So the big takeaway, if you haven't done it recently, is that usually the call doesn't take very long, and it's going to be a pleasant experience. It's not going to be very confrontational as they were in the past. So just something for you to think about as things renew. So anybody had any experience with this or want to share anything related to that?
I guess, Philip, I don't really like automatic renewal because it doesn't give you any recourse. And by the time you focus on it, it could be months later, or if you're incapacitated and don't want the service anymore. So I've never been a really big fan of automatic renewal.
Gina, I agree with you 100%. And I didn't do anything until about 3 years ago with automatic renewal. But now some things, basically, if you want to do it, they're going to have the automatic renewal. Now you can always cancel them, usually at any time, or at least at the yearly thing. And I totally agree with you. And I used to have some magazine subscriptions, and I refused to do automatic renewal on those. And I would, force them to send me a paper bill, and I would write a check, because I didn't know when if I wanted to renew it after another year. So I agree with you, and when I can, I do. But there's some now with the only way you can get on board with something is through them, making a monthly automatic payment to your credit card. So yeah, if you can stay away from them completely, all the better. Just there's going to be some, and now a lot of times with all the streaming services we've added to recently with the pandemic, a lot of us have added streaming services, and those are usually month to month, and you can stop them whenever. But that sort of leads into, my next topic, which is, are you using all these subscriptions and memberships that you have?
I wanted to say something,
Sure.
Phil. I wanted to say that it's not an automatic renewal, but what I learned is because I have cable, and I had cable boxes all throughout my house for, at least 3 TVs. And I invested in the smart TV, and you no longer need the cable box. So I saved, I was paying like $11 per box. And I was able to have that savings because I no longer need the boxes. And like, I never thought, but like you said, when you do that, when you think about it, it's like $33 per month.
Yep.
So I'm saving greatly on that. So that was a good thing.
Yep. Good. That's the $400 a year doing the math quickly. Yeah. So that's enough to buy, a few nice dinners, or a lot of, semi-nice dinners, or whatever.
Right.
You do. And that's, part of it, is balancing a lot. And I talk about this in the budgeting classes, but sometimes, if you save money somewhere, it doesn't, if you want to pocket it, and that's fine. But, sometimes you find out you can spend that money in something you enjoy more.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily saving money. It's just sort of funneling it to someplace different. My wife and I like to go out for dinners. If I can, get another dinner out of something, great for me. And, and so be it. And that's the thing about, subscriptions, what I was trying to talk about next. And I think a good example is now we're coming out of the pandemic, or at least hopefully. And some of us have gotten 3 or 4 or 5 streaming services that, we maybe didn't have before. And just think about them. If you're, it's midsummer now, coming out of the pandemic. If you're still using them all, great. And go ahead and pay for them. I'm sure if you've already signed up for them, you can afford it. But if you notice you're not using these streaming services as much, cancel them. To Gina's point, these are month-to-month subscriptions. There's no penalty for doing it. And quite honestly, come the winter months, if you're up in the northern climes, you can always re-up for them. They'll be happy to have you re-up, in a few months. So just go through that thought process. Are you using memberships? If you have that gym membership and you're not using it, you know, do you really need to pay for it? Do you really want to pay for it? Don't be afraid to cancel things that you're not using. So we have another one that I call one in, one out. This is sort of a little bit of a shopping and a little bit of a ingrained habits, but we live in a condo, high-rise condo, and so we don't have a lot of extra space. We don't have a garage. We don't have a attic. Don't have a basement. So you know, when we buy things, a lot of times it's things for the house, something that we like. You know, my comment to my wife is we're thinking about it. Okay, is where are we going to put it? And basically, our house is pretty full. We have a lot of nice things as it is now. So, you know, this started with clothes, but we sort of involves the entire house now. Is, you know, if you're going to buy something, you got to get rid of something. Usually something similar. You know, so if you're gonna buy, you know, a couple pairs of pants, are there some pants you can get rid of? You know, if you're buying just a knickknack for your living room table, do you really need it? Which one are you going to get rid of? Because the living room table is already pretty full. This does a couple things. One, that makes you think about it. And two, you know, if indeed you really like this new product and you think it's worth it and it's better than what you have, you know, let's go ahead. If you've been thinking about buying it, you can probably afford it. Go ahead and do it. But it just slows you down a little bit and makes you think, is this better than what I have now? That one in, one out philosophy. And again, on that same thought process, and this goes a little bit to shopping also, is the credit card information on your online account. So, you know, Jeff Bezos has made enough money that he can shoot himself up to the moon here in a couple of weeks, or at least get into outer space. And he's done a great job with Amazon. But, you know, he and Amazon started that basically one-click shopping, where you have everything on your credit card, your address, you have everything online. And if you use Amazon or any one particular online service for a lot of your products, that's great. And I would suggest you keep doing it. But if there's some services you don't use all that often, again, just think about, do you really want to have that one-click buy? Sometimes you know, almost before you think about it and before you finish even thinking about it, you've almost bought the thing already and it's already on your credit card and on its way to you. So I would just propose just rethinking about, do you want to have all the credit card information on some accounts that you don't use that often? If you don't, first, it might save from a security standpoint. And then secondly, if you need to get up and go get your wallet or go get your purse, go pull out your credit card, punch in that 16-digit number, punch in the expiration date. It just gives you a little bit of time to think about the process. Is this something you really want, you really need? And if you do, great. Punch it in, move forward, don't worry about it. But it slows you down a little bit. And that's really all the things that we're going to get into in the shopping, which we'll talk about next. It really is making sure you're thinking about something, and is it really something that's going to add value to your life and just really slow you down a little bit to get away from some impulse buying is really what it comes down to. The last thing I have on here is about an accountability buddy. So if you're really having trouble, and this might be in one area in particular, you know, say with me, I like, you know, electronic things, etc. And, you know, maybe if I'm feeling a little bit nervous on buying something and I'm not sure about, you know, I might want to talk to a friend of mine and just, you know, tell them why I'm calling them, talk about it. And I'm sure they will probably reciprocate, because they may have something the same way in the future they can call you about. But just somebody to talk through it with you and, you know, maybe give you the other side of the fence, or at least make sure you're comfortable with what you're buying. So I know we talked about some of the stuff that she did already, and Gina did also. Anything else? Any other comments, questions on any of these topics we talked about? All right, let's go to some shopping alternatives. So the first one is a grace period. And this has a couple different variations sort of split off, but basically grace period is having you think about something before you buy. So this isn't, you know, going out to something you need. We're not talking about grocery shopping or something along those lines. This might be something that you want. but you don't necessarily need. So, let's just say a TV. Let's say, Weta brought up the fact that she got some newer smart TVs. So her other TVs, let's assume they were working okay, but this was a lot better product, had all the new gadgets on it. She didn't necessarily need it, but she wanted it. So what the grace period does is you sort of set up the parameters, but let's just say you use $50 increments. So what you're saying is for every $50 that purchase is going to be, you wait a day. So let's just say that this TV is $300 that Weta was thinking about buying. So at $50 per day, she's going to wait 6 days before she buys that TV. That'll give her some time to think about it. And after 6 days, she still wants that TV. She thinks it's the best thing to do with her $300. Go get it. She's thought about it. She's put it into play, and she still wants it. So that's fine. Some variations on the grace period are something like using that same TV as an example. The day you think about buying it, you would put $300 into your emergency fund or your savings fund, whatever you call your extra money that you have. And then at the end of that 6 days, if you feel you still want that TV, you pull that money out and you pay for it with that $300 you put into your emergency fund for a short term. But if you decide you don't want that TV, it's really not worth the $300, you keep that money in your emergency fund. You were thinking about spending it, so now you have it in your savings or emergency fund, so you're building up your emergency fund. Variations with that, some other variations of that is, it talks about linking savings with splurging. Sometimes maybe you decide this is not something I need, but I want it. You buy it. Maybe you put 10% of that over and above what you just bought. You give it to a charity, or you put it in your savings account. All those things, just you got something you want. So you also give yourself a little reward by putting some money in your savings account or giving to a charity. So the grace period and the linking savings with splurging are all sort of the cousins of the same thing. So the next one I want to talk about is no spend days. Gina, you've probably done this, so please bounce in if you want to. But basically, a no spend day is basically you're saying I'm not going to buy anything on this day.
Well, I haven't bought clothes in 4 years. And the way I was able to do that is because when you're retired, you don't really need all those clothes, number one. And number two, you don't go to the same place all the time. So I can basically wear the same outfit 2 and 3 times a week. And then if you just don't wear anymore, that someone else can benefit from.
Thanks. Yep. I mean, that's basically the concept of, narrowing down a little bit. The no spend days really get down to, you just decide you're not going to buy anything that day, even on your, even if you're out going for a walk, for some good exercise, you're not going to stop at the grocery store to get something you think you need that night for dinner. You're just not going to spend anything that day, no matter what it's for. So when I first heard of this concept, to me, it didn't make a whole bunch of sense, quite honestly, until I thought through it some. Because if I don't buy something today, I can buy it tomorrow, right? And where's the savings if you have a no spend day? But it sort of gets into your psyche a little bit. And there are some things, if you don't buy them today, you're never going to buy them, right? If you don't buy lunch today, you can buy lunch tomorrow, but it's not for today. If you don't buy a coffee today on your way to work or whatever, you're not gonna get it. So, but what it does, it sort of emphasizes to you that you don't always have to get something new. And Gina, used that with her clothes and having retired, and that, so she's taken no spend days, and that's what some other people have talked about here, is that they might say no spending on a category for maybe a month. For me, it might be electronics. For Gina, it might be clothing. Again, you pick it. So the no spend days, if it works for you, you can change it and vary it to topics. You might want to do it with your spouse or significant other, and make a little contest of it. Can you go 3 days in a row without buying anything at all? But it helps to start changing your psyche from, buying something is what's going to help me enjoy the day more, or, get me out of a bad mood, type of thing. And it just sort of focuses a little bit more on the actual spending part of it, and makes you think that I realize I don't need to buy something all the time. So it's just a big picture frame of changing your psyche a little bit about spending and buying things. So you can use it in those various different ways. Any of those would work. So if that's something you might want to do, if you have one area where you buy things that maybe you don't need, you're buying when maybe you're not in a great mood to try to get you better, that might be something you focus on. Like I said, it might be electronics, it might be jewelry, it might be anything that's sensitive to you. Just figure out how you might want to be able to change that.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, with the pandemic and, when we were really like in the house, it helped, even though sometimes I like to shop online. And, but I'll tell you a funny story, because my son lives in the city and he says he wasn't going out. He was staying home because he said every time he walked out his door, he had to spend $100. Living in New York City, every time I go out the door, it's $100. So he stayed home, and it helped him, with the pandemic. So that was good.
And then if he gets into the habit, now he understands that
Yes.
I have to spend there all the time, right? It's
Yes.
all that. It's just changing that psychology a little bit. So, Rita, thanks again for sharing. So.
Also, with the pandemic, as far as groceries, I'm a much wiser shopper now. I tend to buy the staples and just keep them, have them in stock. Because before I was going to the store almost every day just to buy a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit. But now, since the pandemic, I have just kept the habit up of just keeping myself well stocked. So I don't spend every day. I might spend maybe 2 times a month as far as food is concerned. So I have, readjusted things since the pandemic, and also being retired. The gym membership I was going to mention, since before the pandemic, we was a member of 2 gyms, and after the pandemic, I was fortunate we canceled our membership, and I just started using Get Set Up for my. So now I know I'm spending less overall.
Yeah. So thanks. That's a good plug for you and a good plug for Get Set Up. So I appreciate both of that.
Yes.
And somebody, the last time I gave this session a couple of weeks ago, one person, I basically bring it up now because it's about grocery shopping, and this person said that they started using Instacart
Okay.
shopping, which they hadn't done before, and she realizes you have to pay more for Instacart. It's not free; you pay the services. But she said what it really did for her anyway is she did a lot of impulse grocery shopping.
Okay.
Things that weren't on her list that she would buy because she saw them. And even though there is a fee for Instacart, she found out she was actually paying less by having the online shopping because it got her away from that, impulse buying. So again, for some of us that might not work, that might not be an issue, but that's just another, another tool in our arsenal to think about. It sounds like you've done a good job, doing it another way by just, like you say, not picking up something every day.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different variations to this, exactly. So another one that I like to talk about is when I say consider the total cost of a purchase. So this one sort of goes against the grain at first. Gina's going to cringe for a second, but I think she'll jump on board at the end. And it is, sometimes the cheapest product is not the cheapest for you. And probably the best example of this is a printer that we're going to use to to print stuff from our computer. So sometimes the cheapest printer that you're going to get in the category you're looking at, it's going to eat up so much more ink that by the end of the year, you have paid a lot more in ink and printer than if you bought a more expensive printer to begin with that uses less ink. So it's just something to think of. You do need to be creative. You need to have a little research on that, but that's just a good example. And it really works with printers. The cheaper the printer is, almost by default, it's going to use more ink. So I'm not saying you always buy the most expensive printer. That's not what I'm saying. But I think probably buying the cheapest printer, just make sure you understand how much ink you go through. And if you're somebody who doesn't make many copies, that cheapest printer is probably the best thing for you. But if you make an average amount or make a lot of copies, that cheap one is probably not going to be the best deal for your pocketbook a year later. Another example of this might be the coffee makers now, where you buy the pods to go with them. So I'm not a coffee drinker myself, but my wife is. And, so we went out, she'd had one of these cups of coffee at a friend's house and really liked the taste of the flavor. So we went out and looked at them, and, again, we isolated one that we liked. And then we thought about the pods, okay, so this is more than you making coffee at home, but it's less than obviously if you go out and buy a cup of coffee. But we thought about it, we could afford it. She really liked the coffee, and we bought it. And that was 2 or 3 years ago. And, if we were still using them, we understood the overall cost. We understood that we were going to be paying so much per pod afterwards. But it's been a good deal. We went in with our eyes open and understood the total cost of the purchase before we bought it. And it was fine for us understanding everything. But just, give you that, think about the refill costs, so to speak, of a product, if indeed there are some, and then make sure that you're buying the best balance between the cost of the original product and what the refills are going to cost you. So, Gina, I hope I didn't make you get too nervous there about not always buying the cheapest thing. And I'm just joking with you. You're the one that thought, said yourself frugal. So I'm just trying.
No, I agree with you. No, I agree with you totally. I'm frugal, but I believe in quality.
Right.
For example, I purchased a Vitamix probably over 10 years ago, and it's something that I can leave to great grandchildren. It's that don't break. Yes, I spent like $300 or $400 for it, but that was over 10 years ago, and it still functions the way it did when I bought it. So no, I agree with you totally.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page there. So thanks. And then the last one is, you got to listen to it from that. Shopping list is not just for groceries. So all of us have heard about, if you want to go grocery shopping, go with a list. Don't go when you're hungry. There's nothing new there from that standpoint. But what some research has shown, some academic research, a couple of universities has shown that idea of the shopping list isn't just for groceries. It's really for almost all shopping. So, let's say that you decide you want to go out and buy some clothes, and your thought process before you leave the house is you want to buy a new pair of slacks and maybe a belt to go with it. So that's fine. Just as when you get to the store, you find a pair of slacks you like, you find a belt you like, that's fine. Just don't also buy a blouse or also buy a pair of shoes, because that was not your intention. So you want to stick with your shopping list, even for non-grocery items. And then the even more surprising thing from this is some of the researchers have shown that when you're hungry and buying non-grocery things, some people spend up to 60% more because that hunger factor is there. So the takeaway from this is maybe don't do any kind of shopping, not just grocery shopping, but any kind of shopping while you're hungry. Because my wife would probably tell you, I get a little impatient when I'm hungry, get that little bit of a growl in there. So that probably would be, correct for me if indeed, that was the case. So just something to think about. Again, these are all just ideas. I don't expect anybody to take all of them into consideration, but just some ideas to put in your arsenal, so to speak, to help you get better. So any questions, any comments? You guys are doing a great job as we go with comments and questions. Anything else about shopping that we haven't covered that you want to talk about, or any questions about these things? All right, so let's go to our final category. So a couple things. So when I started this class, this wasn't quite as common. Now there's one insurance company out there that's really pushing it, and it's basically saying that if you have homeowners insurance and you have car insurance, just make sure you have them with the same company. I don't care which company you go to. If you add your home to your house or your house to your home, I'm not advocating any insurance company, but if you have those insurance, put them together. In almost all cases, you're going to save money. You can see at the bottom of my screen, insurance.com has recently posted that on average, you'll save over 11% off your auto premiums when you bundle. That's what putting your insurance together is bundling. So it's going to save you some money, regardless of which company you're using, with almost all companies putting them together. Now, you may get some other little side benefits over and above the savings of money. You're dealing with one person or one insurance company. So, unfortunately, you have two claims going at once. Maybe somebody broke into your rental car when you're on vacation. You got to file two claims. At least you're doing it all at one time. And there's actually some companies where, let's use the example where a tree, your car was parked in your driveway and a tree came down and struck your house and your car. So with most companies, you're going to have a deductible on your house damage and another deductible on your auto damage. Some companies, not all, but some companies actually, if it's one event, like the one I just described where the tree fell on both your house and your car, will only take one deductible if they insure both parts of it. It's less paperwork, less checks to write, all those other little things, as well as saving some money. So just think about that, and magnify that even further. If you have other insurance, maybe a motorcycle, maybe a camper, maybe you have an umbrella policy, I would probably advocate putting them all with one insurance company. It makes everything easier, and you are going to save some money. So if you haven't done it, that's an easy one. It will make you 2 phone calls. You call each of your insurance companies and tell them, you want a quote on the other, and then you can just go with one that's easier. You're already dealing with those 2 companies anyway. Let's just deal with one. Any questions on that? So nobody is indicated on this, in the class at the beginning when we talked about why we're attending, that, we're like, strapped for money, in a very detailed, very bad way. But I just like to bring this up, if you are, and indeed, as most of us have talked about, myself included, we just transitioned to retirement. If, you really feel you need to save some money, one of the best ways to do that is if you have 2 cars, you're now retired, do you need both cars? That's a big savings there. You get rid of the car payment, you get rid of the insurance payment on that second car. You're probably going to travel less, you have a little less gas costs, etc. But just something to think about if you need to save money or just want to save some money if you have just recently transitioned to retirement. So, I live, as I referenced earlier, in Chicago. We've lived with 1 car only. My wife has worked in the city and takes public transportation. I've worked out in the suburbs, and we would drive the car. And now we drive the car a lot less. And we've debated about keeping the car or not. We decided to do it. It's a lot easier with a lot of things. I mean, obviously you can take Ubers, etc. But we've decided to keep the car. But we went through the thought process about it and tried to make a decision as to what we needed to do. But if you do have 2 cars, it can save a lot of money. So exploring free activities. So this one really surprised me. I've lived in Chicago for over 25 years, and I thought I knew all of those good free things. But while I was creating this class, I just typed in, free activities to do in Chicago or something along that in Google. And I was amazed of how much activities that I did not know about that were out there that you could do for free. And some of them I really wanted to do. And some of them maybe that, maybe a museum is free for seniors on a Tuesday, or if you live in the town or city where you are. So some things are free on a certain basis. Sometimes you just get a discount. We went out to botanical gardens here in Chicago last week, and our plan was to go on a Tuesday, just what was good on our calendar. And then when we were checking for the prices, we found out there was decent discount for seniors on Tuesday. So that worked out really great. So we really enjoyed it. We'll probably go again. We'll just do it on Tuesday. You save a, decent bundle of money, even though it's not free. So free or discount. But you would be amazed. There might be, I like to walk, explore, hike, and, there's some free hiking trails I didn't even know about here in the area. We vacation every year in the same area, and I've gone to do that now too. We found some things last year that we didn't know about by just doing a little exploring. So there's a lot of good things to do that don't cost a lot of money or no money at all. So just do a little exploring and you might find some things that you enjoy. So we probably all heard of Keeping Up with the Joneses. And when we were all growing up and we were in our 20s and 30s, the Joneses were literally our next door neighbors and maybe somebody to, went down the street, whatever. For our children and grandchildren now, Keeping Up with the Joneses is the whole world, right? We've got social media. People post they're going on vacation, people buying new cars. So it's a lot more difficult for the generation or two generations behind us about keeping up with the Joneses now, because it is the whole world. I will admit to that. But, basically what I'm trying to say here with Keeping Up with the Joneses anyway, what we're used to is, live life for yourself. Do you really want to spend for a vacation just because it's going to look good on Instagram or it's going to look good on your Facebook page? I can't tell you to do or not do it, but just the thought process. Do what you enjoy, not what you think is going to, do a little extra splash for you somewhere. And we all have to balance how we're doing that, but just something to think about. And so I just call it, who are the Joneses anyway? Let's not worry about them is basically what we want to talk about there. So automatic discount codes. So this one sort of surprised me. I sort of threw this one and I thought it was sort of a throwaway that everybody knew about this and did it, but surprisingly, this is one of the typically the most questions I get on this. So this is one product that we talk about. So I'm just going to tell you the product that I use. It's been fine. It's called Honey. It's just like the food you would buy, but there's many other products out there. But basically, what some of us have probably done in the past, and what I used to do until 2 or 3 years ago when I found this, is if I was going to buy something online, I would then try to type in something on Google and try to find some discounts for that particular product or that particular vendor. So let's say I'm at Land's End buying some clothes. I would type in Land's End coupons, discounts, and then it would send me somewhere and I would try that code. It didn't work. I would try another code, whatever. These automatic discount codes. Now, first off, you do have to download the product to your computer. So you want to make sure it's safe and it's a valid product and do some research on it. But once it's on the computer, when you go into a shopping site, you're going to buy something on internet, it just sort of opens up behind the scenes. And once you put something in your shopping cart, it will run. And when you're ready to buy, it will run behind the scenes and go look for all these computer discount shopping codes, and will actually run them all behind the scenes for you. And it'll tell you about how long it's taking. It usually takes anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds typically. And it will tell you it's checking on 8 different codes. And then it will come back and say, you've got the best price, or it will automatically fill in a code and says, you're going to get free shipping with this code or whatever. You get 10% off. I've had some where I've got 15 or 20% off without doing anything but letting that automatic discount code run in the background. I was going to buy the product anyway, and I get it for 20% less. Why not? So again, if you feel comfortable in regards to downloading the products, I would do the research on them. They run pretty well, and I notice now some of the credit cards have their own family product, so to speak, which is very similar to that. I know my mother's credit card, they just sent her something recently because she sent it to me to see if it was something that was okay or legit. But I don't remember which credit card it was now, but they basically have something just like that, just running for their own. If you charge that credit, put something on that credit card, it runs behind the scenes and is checking for you. So just something else to think about. It doesn't really take any extra time and may be of value to you. Anybody done this before or already? Okay.
Nope, but it sounds very interesting. I guess you can Google automatic discount codes.
Yep, that's what I would do. And there's going to be
Okay.
5 or 6 main ones that come up.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, yep, I would just do that. Um, and then the final thing I wanted to talk about, as we get older, change is a little bit harder. Everybody has problem with change, but as we get older, we seem to have even more problem with change. So, just my thought process is let's not forget about the newer technologies. Let's stay up with our children. Let's stay up with our grandchildren, right? They're going to have something to talk about. But, there's the automatic thermostats now that will adjust temperatures accordingly. The new, some of the newer light bulbs, they may cost 4 times as much, but they'll run for 10 times as long as the current light bulbs. And, especially if they're in a place where you got to get up on the ladder, if you buy one of those light bulbs now, you may never have to get up on that ladder again, right? And, unfortunately, from personal experience, I know my mother-in-law was doing something along those lines, changing a light bulb and fell off the ladder and, broke, broke some bones. So just don't be afraid of the new technology.
I was doing this clap. Wait just a minute. I'm almost done.
So anyway, just thinking about that. Let's not be old fogies. Even though, like I said, most of us are transitioning to retirement. Let's keep our brains open to the newer technologies. Things are coming out every day, and some of these truly will save us time and or money.
We have the automatic, I think we have most of those, and it really did make a difference in our consumer bill. The thermostat, we have the one for the fire, what is it? One for the fire alarm, and we have the lights. He changed all the lights. So it did make a difference
Yep.
in our bill. We've had a couple years, so
Yep.
we can see the difference.
You're staying young, Diane. That's what I like, right?
Yeah, trying.
Good. So I appreciate all. This has been a little smaller class than usual, but you guys have all been great and interactive. So I just like to close with just a couple sort of little summary. It's up to you, but just be creative in what you're saying. None of these things, not all these things are going to work for all of us, but just pick and choose. Are there some ingrained habits you should shatter? Probably. And let's be ourselves. Let's not worry about other people. And the final thing I did sort of reference in the class, sometimes I don't, but remember, reducing expense in one area you don't care about can maximize your overall financial situation, either by saving money or by being able to spend it in some area that you enjoy more. We talked about the example, if I save a little bit on a streaming service I don't use anymore, I might be able to go out for an extra dinner that month instead of paying for the streaming service. Or at least get an adult beverage out of it, at least depending on how much the streaming service was. So, so just a couple quick closing slides with Get Set Up. I've already talked about some of the other classes that I teach. You will get a little email, not a little, you'll get an email from me. It's actually from Get Set Up after the class. I'm the one that prepares it. So it will come to you with a little summary of today's class. You'll also get a link to a survey. So if you have time to fill out the survey, please do. And I like a lot of stars if you think it's a good class, but what I really like is if you can give 2 or 3 sentences about what you liked about the class or what you think I should change. I'm adapting these classes all the time based on feedback from you and other people taking the class. So that would be great if you can, talk about what went well, what we can work on and get better. And then finally, we've been in probably about 6 weeks in a new version of Get Set Up, and it's really easy now to invite a friend. So Get Set Up's trying to get bigger. We like to have even more people join some of our things. So maybe you can invite a friend, a neighbor, a relative. They can join the same class as you the first time through, and then if they like it, they can sign up themselves with Get Set Up and move forward. So just encourage you, if you're taking a class you think a friend or a relative would like, to please try to encourage them to join. Then finally, again, that email address is on the right part of the screen, help@getsetup.io. That basically, if you want to suggest a new class, if you want a copy of if you want a recording of the session, anything you want in regards to, getting in touch with Get Set Up, you can use that email address to do so. So with that, any other questions or comments? Anybody wants to add?
No, just thank you.
Thank you, Wita. And Gina, thank you for, for allowing me to use you in a couple of examples. I mean, all of you have, but I appreciate that, and everybody being good sports. And I'll stay in line. If you have any other questions, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good class.
Thank you.
Right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Franklin.
All right, bye now.
Bye.
All right. Any other comments, Diane?
No, 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 no. Great class.
Right. Thank you. Gina, anything else?
Just trying to sign off, but thank you for a good class.
Take care. Hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye.